Welcome, everyone, to this week's Radical Collaboration. As you know, the whole idea behind this is introducing you to people that can improve your life. I often think of it sometimes where people come to me and say, "Hey, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me?" And I picture that as like me going to my dentist. I love her. She's great. She's knowledgeable. She's smart. She can learn things. But I wouldn't go to her and say, "Hey, could you do my knee surgery?" I don't want her doing my knee surgery. She serves me by introducing me to people that she knows that are experts in this field. And that's what I'm doing with you today. And first, a little self confession here. You know me. If you look around, my blood has orange in it. I'm a big proponent of inbound, of HubSpot. There's a reason I'm wearing this shirt today. There's a reason it's HubSpot orange in the logo. But one of the dirty little secrets, if you will, in inbound marketing is there's a lot of people that talk about leads. They talk about growth, they talk about leads. They talk about building the list, but they don't talk about green. And that's why I wanted to introduce today's guest, Darrell Amy. And Darrell, he's got the inbound background, but he understands that if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. He's got a great heart, not only for business owners, but for the world. And with that, we are brothers in inbound, but also realizing that that if there's no profit, there's no ministry. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to my friend, Darrell Amy. Darrell, welcome.
Going on? Hey, Tom, thanks for having me in today. This is going to be so much fun. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Well, I would say, you're one of the nicest guys I know. But then when I found out that you were from Canada, I'm like, well, that's just redundant, right?
There you go. Well, I'm the Canadian boy that married a Southern girl. So this accent you hear, and by the way, I spent a couple of years in Michigan on the way south. So this accent you hear is a bit of a mess, but thanks nonetheless. And it's exciting. This is a really challenging time in the world, but it's also a really exciting time when you look at it from the perspective of charting a course forward in our businesses, in our lives, and so this is a really cool time to be considering growth.
Well, there was this quote I heard the other day, and it was like, that is a great quote. It was something like, there are decades where nothing happens and weeks where decades happen. And I'm like, I think those are the times we were living in. Of course, it was Lenin that said that, not John Lennon, but the communist Vladimir Lenin. But it's so true. And everything that's going on in this world, the world needs our help more than anything. And there's more opportunity out there. There's scariness out there too. So I think your book is very timely. Can you unpack, what was your heart in doing this labor? Because writing a book, if doing a podcast is hard, writing a book is even harder, and then everything you've been doing to promote it. So can you tell us a little bit about the why behind it?
Oh, my favorite question. Thank you, Tom. And it was a joy to write the book. I'm passionate about helping great companies grow. And here's why. I've been involved for over 17 years on a board of a nonprofit that funds missions innovation. I'm also involved in several other nonprofits in my church. And what I've noticed is obviously nonprofits need funds, they need resources to grow and to do the important and I would say now critical work that so many of them do. Who is going to provide those resources? Who moves the needle? And there's no slight to wonderful individuals that give and have a heart of generosity. But when there's a forward-thinking, profitable, growing, healthy business owner that has a heart for the kingdom and for the world, that's when we can see amazing things happen. So I was on a sabbatical. I was considering, what am I going to do going forward? I want to have an impact in my life. I want to make sure that what I'm doing matters. And I thought, well, number one, I could continue growing business. I could go to work for a nonprofit, or I could help businesses grow their revenue and thus create additional income, create additional resources that could be funneled back into the kingdom. So the big hairy, audacious goal behind a revenue growth engine is to say, how can we help 10,000 great businesses double revenue so that we can affect $10 billion a year in net new giving? It's a big goal, but I really believe it's possible when we get strategic about how we think about growth and how we structure our businesses around growth.
And I'd add not only being strategic, and thank you, I love that mission and what you're trying to do, but the clarity that I got in reading your book. And I remember you gave me a before I even got the hardcover, you had sent me a PDF version of it. I printed it out. Sorry to all the environmentalists out there. I can't read it on a computer. So I printed it out, put it in a 3-ring notebook, and started going through and highlighting and going, oh yeah, you're talking about the clarity in this, that a lot of times we look at vanity metrics like likes and downloads and all the rest of this. And you're like, no, it's, it's revenue. And is this how you get revenue? And I think the clarity in this book really helped me and a lot of other people that have been, I hope that have been hearing these phrases for a long time. And, you gave one of the examples in there and about a great marketing case study. Can you share that one about where it caused you just sort of scratch your head and going, this is the case study?
Well, so by way of background, I've spent my entire career in business to business sales. So 27 years in sales. I've been involved in sales training. I've had the opportunity to train thousands of software salespeople and even develop training for some Fortune 500 companies. At the same time, 17 years ago, when I launched my training company, my very first client said, hey, Darrell, everything you trained our sales team to say is fantastic. Our website doesn't say anything about that. Do you build websites? So being my very first client, I think you can all guess what the answer was. It was, yes, sir, we build websites. And I'd built a website for my church and for a nonprofit just back 17 years ago, trying to figure out and learn how to do that. But it set me on this journey of where I was involved in sales training, and involved in helping companies develop their sales. But I was also leading an agency that continued to grow, where we were helping organizations develop their digital marketing strategy. So, of course, that evolved from websites to search engines to social media to inbound marketing. And now some of the things we'll talk about today with outbound marketing. But the idea was to say, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, we've got to grow. And here was the challenge. And we've got orange everywhere. I'm a huge HubSpot fan. We've been a HubSpot Gold partner for many years now, and use HubSpot in our own companies. And I love the technology. I love the power. I love the principles behind it. But here's the challenge for B2B sales teams. So we're talking business to business here. I think, if you've got a large addressable market, like a metropolitan area with thousands or tens of thousands of households, and maybe you sell a product like roofing, or you sell swimming pools or plumbing repair, whatever that is, inbound marketing, in its purest form, makes a lot of sense. When you get in the B2B space, things are a little bit different. In B2B, we don't necessarily need leads. We should already know who our leads are. And what I mean by that is most B2B companies, when they sit down and look at their clients, they realize, hey, we've got some clients that are ideal clients. They're the types of clients that are best fit for us. And they can develop a profile around that. Well, if you know your ideal client profile and you know the market that you're serving, you should be able to identify your ideal prospects as well. And know who those companies are, like who you want to work with. They get assigned to a salesperson. And now the focus shifts a little bit. And I'll get to this case study in a second, I promise. The focus shifts from saying, I don't need leads. I already know who the people are that I want to work with. What I need is engagement. So we went on this experiment for years. I was a huge advocate for inbound marketing in B2B sales teams in local marketplaces. So they had a defined market, they had an area. And what would happen was, inbound says, hey, buyers are online, they're looking for what you sell. There are two challenges with that. First of all, in the B2B space, especially when you know the value proposition and the people you want to work with. Only a small fraction of those people at any given moment have a felt need and are online. There's for every person online, there's dozens that have the need and don't aren't looking. So we've got to engage with them. So we saw these over and over. We would see inbound marketing where, in that B2B environment, we would say, okay, we're going to put the blogs out, we're going to put the content out, we're going to put the lead magnets out, and we're going to hope and wait for somebody to maybe swim by and take a nibble on it. And then we'll, obviously attract, convert, close, delight, and we'll move them through the process. The problem with that is in the B2B sales environment, once again, for every person that's actively looking, there are dozens of people that could benefit but aren't actively looking. So we saw a lot of disappointment. And one of the wake-up calls was one day I was reading a case study on a B2B company that I was very familiar with, and they had hired a full-time inbound marketing person for 2 years. They'd hired a support person for that person. They'd hired consultants to help them execute their inbound marketing program. And best estimate, they were about $250,000, and that's probably conservative on their inbound marketing project. And the case study from this particular unnamed agency was going, look at this incredible success. We generated $500,000 in sales. Now, do the math on that real quick. That's $500,000 in lifetime revenue. We know, if they generated 20% profit off that, that's $100,000, and they'd invested over $250,000 to generate $100,000 in profit. Now, you could continue that argument in a number of different ways, but at a very simple level, at the green level, Tom, the emperor has no clothes in that environment, and I think there's something different that needs to be done.
There's an old joke. I think it was GM, probably 40 years ago, made a comment one time that they were losing money on every car, but making it up on volume.
You make it up on volume. Yeah.
And it's very similar.
This is a challenge that I think we need to be honest about. Now, I want everybody to know I'm right with you, Tom. I drink a lot of orange Kool-Aid. I'm a huge fan of marketing automation and sales enablement. But I think when it comes to the B2B perspective, we've got to shift our thinking a little bit away from what would be traditionally be called inbound marketing to where in the B2B space, we need to look to what enterprise has been doing for quite a while now. And that's account-based marketing. Now, we could talk about account-based marketing in a lot of detail, but basically, in a nutshell, at its simplest and most practical format, account-based marketing says, hey, we're going to identify the companies that we know are great fits for us. They're our ideal prospects, and we're going to market to them, and we're going to sell to them. So we're going to align marketing and sales to go after the best fit prospects in our market. And our policy is going to be, our goal is going to be 100% coverage. In other words, if there are 1,000 ideal prospects in our market that we want to work with, from a sales perspective, we have processes in place like target account programs and prospecting processes that ensure that 100% of the time on a whatever quarterly, monthly basis, we set the cadence where these ideal prospects are going to hear from our sales team. Now, your sales team, a sales team can call on anybody, they can take an order from anybody, but around here, our policy is 100% coverage of our ideal prospects because we know those are the companies that need to know who we are. They're going to be the ones to accelerate our growth. Marketing's the same way. Now, this is a little bit different mindset for marketing because usually in marketing, we just kind of cast it out upon the waters and hope, that a small percentage comes back to us. In what we call in Revenue Growth Engine, outbound marketing, which is basically applied account-based marketing for medium-sized and small companies. Basically, what we're saying is the philosophy, the mindset of marketing says we are going to do everything we can to facilitate engagement with this particular set of ideal clients. And so with that mindset, we still use similar tools. And by the way, it is really cool that right now HubSpot is innovating. Just, example of one of the many great marketing automation platforms. HubSpot is innovating and launching account-based marketing tools to solve this particular problem. So, we're right in line here in this conversation with the evolution of what's happening with inbound. But the idea is to say, look, if we're B2B and we know who our ideal prospects are, then let's look at marketing from a less of a throw it out there and hope somebody comes by to more of a focused, intentional motion of literally asking the question and putting processes in place to ensure that we get engagement with 100% is the goal of our ideal prospects on a regular basis.
And one of the things I really appreciated in your book is that you look at it from a business owner's perspective, as I took at it, not just a marketer's perspective, right? So what's the ultimate goal on this? And, most people, and I love how you even take it from a higher level, right? Personally, yours is to grow the kingdom. Well, how do we do that? By revenue, by helping other people. How do we do that? And drilling it down there. And what I found is that the clarity in there and then the actionable advice on there. When I printed that out in the 3-ring binder, I had notes in it. And I remember reaching out to you and telling you the time on it was perfect because we were just going into our quarterly leadership meeting. And there's a reason that I didn't invite you on a month ago when I first got these ideas. It's like, before I share this with the world and even my competitors, and I hope they read the book too, because it will help them in their business. I want to start executing on some of these things. So talk to me a little bit about how you help people, get that to execute on these and really see the benefits that you've seen also.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. And I wrote the book to be very practical, so it's very heartening to hear that. We don't need theory right now. We need models that we can put into practice. And so, as I was writing Revenue Growth Engine, as I'm building the tools, which, by the way, if you go to revenuegrowthengine.net, the website you can see right behind me here, you can find free tools that go along with the book to help you operationalize the exponential revenue growth goal setting, to operationalize the ideal client profiles, the ideal client experience, and and the sales and marketing processes that go around that. So there is help there to get started. But really, where I spend most of my time now, Tom, is clients are engaging us to help them develop revenue growth strategies. So for far too long, organizations, whether they're large Fortune 500 organizations or even medium-sized organizations, and sometimes even small companies, there were silos. There were just big walls between marketing and sales. Sales was doing their thing, marketing was doing their thing. What we noticed when we were doing quarterly strategy reviews with our marketing clients, we would always ask, just simple and very good question to ask in your business review process is, what are your goals? What are your goals right now? What are you aiming towards? And over, people said revenue growth. We want to grow revenue. And, after hearing that multiple times, the lights kind of came on, and I realized the goal here is not marketing. In marketing, we got a lot of really cool technology that can also be shiny objects. So the goal, like you said at the beginning, the goal's not likes, the goal's not leads, the goal is revenue growth. And on sales, the same thing. There's a lot of great sales strategies, and I get to talk to some of the best minds in sales and marketing on the Revenue Growth podcast every week. There's so much great stuff out there. However, sometimes we get wrapped up in the sales model, the sales technique, whatever camp, our company is in terms of sales and the sales enablement technology. Well, it's not about that. It's about growing revenue. And what I discovered was when we took the focus off marketing and off sales and focused on revenue, all of a sudden things came into alignment, especially when we were looking at revenue from our ideal clients. So that's, the mindset here. And a lot of companies are saying, how do we grow revenue? So I get involved in revenue growth workshops. We'll go into companies and help them take their goals, turn it into a strategy and executable plan to grow revenue. And so that's a lot of fun. We do that with companies all over the country. Obviously, we used to fly out and do that. We're doing that virtually now. And I am in the process, just a little sneak peek, of putting together, because we want this to be scalable. In order to hit this goal of 10,000, I can't go to 10,000 businesses, and we can only have so many consultants on our staff. So we're actually putting together right now revenue growth workshops where companies can come and, the leadership team, the executive marketing and sales leadership can come together, and we'll lead you through the process of putting together a revenue growth plan for your business.
That's awesome. And to me, now more than ever, that's needed, right? Because the day of, I remember somebody saying, never confuse brilliance with a bull market, right?
Yeah.
When the market's growing and everybody's growing with it, doesn't mean you're brilliant. And now when the market's tight and every dollar is important, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I was just remember seeing some studies that said, the last few recessions, there were companies that came out of it stronger, growing, and, they became the leading companies. And then there are other ones that either stagnated or started to get small. And as soon as that happened, they were dying. So what's your sense in the importance of this for leadership here in these trying times?
Well, it's really critical. And when I talk to companies right now, it's interesting because I do get to talk to executives and sales and marketing leaders every day across multiple industries. And the conversations go one of two ways. About 2/3 of the conversations are, we just took a massive hit with the economic and the pandemic and all of that. And we don't know how we've got to accelerate growth. A lot of companies set growth goals based on what I call the ruler method, right? We did this much last year, this much the year before that, and let's put a ruler on that and we'll figure out what our goal is for next year. Well, it's a conservative way to do things. I think you leave a lot of money on the table. I believe we've got a much better way with the exponential growth, the law of exponential growth. However, if you use the ruler method right now, the ruler's pointing in the wrong direction, right? It's not good for a lot of companies. So they're looking to go, okay, how do we, now that the dust is starting to settle and we know what our new normal is in terms of revenue, what we've been able to keep, how do we set goals to go forward? And we're going to have to accelerate our revenue growth. We can't just do 10% or whatever you did year over year. It's going to take more to get back. We've got to accelerate growth. So what does that mean? Well, we've got to get strategic and we've got to have a plan and processes in place. The other conversations we're having, which are very, very interesting, and they're the exact opposite, are companies right now in certain industries that are exploding. All of a sudden, they just had, they were essential. They've got demand beyond what they can fulfill. And they're looking, going, how do we sustain this? Like, how do we capitalize on this and turn this into not just a short-term flash in the pan, but like long-term relationships? And, that's going across all kinds of industries and medical, even things you wouldn't think of, like office cleaning and industrial cleaning companies are exploding right now. So we're involved in conversations with those types of companies to say, okay, in the middle, and this is a hard time to plan, by the way. If you're down, you're scrambling. If you're exploding, you're scrambling. But I think this is a critical time to take some time and go, okay, what's our plan going forward? How are we going to do this? So the conversations right now are some of them are heartbreaking, but at the same time, I love the attitude of business right now. Forward-thinking business people going, you know what? We're going to figure this out. I'm part of the C-suite network advisors, and inside that, our mantra this spring has been drive and thrive. Right? We're going to drive and thrive. Yeah, we're going to be empathetic. We have to be, and I think we figured that out. But now it really is time to make sure that we are setting ourselves up so that we can not only just survive, but also thrive going forward. And all of that requires revenue.
That whole idea of exponential growth to me is like the best kept secret, and that's something that's talked about long term. We're always talking about this quarter or next quarter,
Yeah.
or what did Facebook did? They grew so fast, and what brought me to Kalamazoo was the Stryker Corporation.
Okay.
And I look back on that, and John Brown, barely anybody knows his name out there, but he is the first CEO ever in U.S. history to grow a company 20% a year over 20 years. And he took over Stryker after the founder's son, who was the CEO at the time, died in a plane accident. And, at that time, Stryker was in the tens of millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And John came in, and just the goal was for everybody. They knew it was revenue, right? We grow 20% a year. And while it doesn't sound that huge, he was doubling the size of that company every 3.5 years. And, now it's, a Fortune 500 company, but it was that continual growth on that. And I was reminded of that with one of the tools that you put out there. And it was just an Excel spreadsheet, right? And it said, each year, how do you want to grow your number of customers, net number of customers, and your sales, right?
Revenue per customer, right?
Revenue per customer.
Yes.
How much are you helping them? Average sale price, whatever. And I would just encourage everybody to download that, put some numbers in, and that law of exponential growth, right? If you just, and those two are helping each other, more customers serving them better, revenue per customer, that number that you see at the end of 3 or 4 years is amazing. And, I think John Brown heck, way before there was Excel spreadsheets, he had that in his mind in the 70s, that all we need to do is grow this 20% a year. And it's been amazing.
20% sounds like a lot, but when you go a level down on how to drive revenue, and I'll be brief on this, this is the first chapter of the book, is how to drive exponential revenue. And this tip, I think, is something that all of our viewers today are going to benefit from. There's only 2 ways to drive revenue. You get more net new customers, so you add customers, and that one's obvious. The second is you sell more to your current customers. We call it cross-selling. And that's pretty obvious as well. What I've noticed is most companies are good at one or the other. So, if you're good at net new and you do 10% year over year, but you don't manage strategically your client base for additional sales, you're going to have linear growth. However, if you can get both of those firing at the same time, Tom, companies that do 10% in net new and 10% in increasing their revenue per client will notice that they double revenue in between 36 and 48 months organically. And that just modest growth backed with processes and strategy in each one of those 2 growth areas, it is astounding. And that's what gets me fired up. I don't get fired up about spreadsheets that often, but when I put that spreadsheet together for the first time during a client meeting, I was like, holy smoke, if we drive both of these at the same time, we can really, really move the needle. And that creates giving, it creates opportunities, creates employment. And, and this is a time right now where I think companies can look at that just one level down, net new, cross-sell, and come up with strategies that are going to allow them to accelerate out of the ditch and set a profitable future for their organizations.
Once again, what's ordinary to you is amazing to other people, right? I'm a big reader. Okay, well,
me too.
I feel like I lie every time I say I'm a big reader. I listen to a lot of books, and I tell you what,
that counts.
That I read your book, the actual physical book of it.
I'm so proud of you.
Well, it says a lot, because most of the time I'll just when people say I'll wait till it comes out on Netflix, for me it's like I'll wait till it comes out on Audible.
Right.
And most of the time, I listen to it on Audible. Then if it's really great, I get the physical book, and then I start taking notes and really working it. And yours was not even. I guess I'll have to listen to it on Audible again now, but when it comes out, but I just started with that and then taking the notes on it, and just the clarity on that of, I read a lot of books on sales and revenue, and just seeing that at the very beginning, it's like, it's basic. And that's something that we should know that our grandparents knew that this is the only two ways to grow revenue. And you made it very, very simple in there. And I wanted to thank you for that and be respectful of your time here. Thank you so much for being here. What is ordinary to you is amazing to other people. And I know you're going to help those 10,000 businesses. And when you think about that, 10,000 businesses, how many employees is that going to help? How many families is that going to help?
Millions.
Millions. How many customers is that going to help? That little butterfly effect you're having here. And I highly encourage people, listen to Darrell's podcast. Get the book either in print or on Audible, and
coming next month.
Learn from that. And because now is the time. Now is the time where we're either going to shrivel away or we're going to grow and be something great in the future. So with that, I mean, if people heard this and they're like, man, this resonates with me, how can they get more of Darrell? How can they work with you? What's the next step?
Yeah, once again, when you go to revenuegrowthengine.net, definitely get the resources. If you want to take a next step, click on Get Started. We'll have a consultation with your organization and talk about your goals. And I'm happy to connect. Love connecting with people. So you can look me up. When you have the last name Amy, you're pretty easy to find on LinkedIn and Facebook. So just type in my name, and I'd love to connect with you and dialogue, and love to learn about your vision and your goals, because at the end of the day, it really isn't even about revenue. It's about providing the resources for you to hit your goals and ultimately to make the world a better place. And so, yeah, Tom, thank you so much for having me in here today. This is always a pleasure when we get to talk, and I'm glad we got to share this with the audience.
Well, Darrell, thank you for who you are, what you do, and all the people you help.
Awesome.